I got everything painted up and cleaned up. Then I noticed there was a little bit of gasket material left on some of my parts, so I'm going back with a little 1.5 inch roll lock and a fine Scotch-Brite to get that last little bit of gasket material back off of the ceiling surfaces. Yeah, I'll have to clean this again because obviously we're creating some dust by doing this. But I think it's better to be safe than sorry. You want these ceiling surfaces to be nice and flat. This also has given me a chance to just really fine-tune these ceiling surfaces because I don't want any leaks. I don't think anybody does. Like I said, just a little angle die grinder. You can do it by hand too if you want. Just get some Scotch-Brite. But if you got the tools, you might as well use them. Just be gentle with it because these things will move some metal. I know this is cast iron, but if you stay in one spot for too long or put too much pressure on it, you can create a little bit of a divot. So just go easy on it. And you should be good to go. Alright, so I've got everything cleaned up. Gasket surfaces are all clean. Gears and bearings are all clean. I'm going to get one bearing. I noticed the one on the front output is a little bit on the rough side. My guess is it would last for another 20 years or so, but since we're in it, I want to make sure everything's up to par and as good as new. I think the reason that it is a little rough is because it sat idle for a while and got a little bit of rust pitting on the balls, and that'll happen. Everything else seems to be really nice. Nothing is real loose. Gears all look really good. The synchros, I think they're called synchros, that's what I always call them, where they engage, are looking really nice. No, just a little bit of normal wear. A lot of times you'll see where guys have really ramrodded that transfer case and tried to grind it into gear, and that's where these beveled teeth are going to end up rounded off, burred, and just not right. So you would want to replace that. The shift forks look good. A lot of wear left on them. In good shape. That's all stuff you want to check. What else? All my roller bearings are fine. I mean, not a lot to the inspection. You're looking for obvious damage or wear. Everything on this looks good. Like I said, I'm going to replace one bearing. I'm going to put some new bolts, new hardware in it, and on it and around it. Otherwise, yeah, I sprayed it gloss black with some Duplicolor engine enamel. It's one of my favorite sprays to use just because it's so tough, and it's up to 500 degrees. It'll be fine on this type of stuff. I'll use the same thing on the transmission. Plus, like I said, it's really tough, good stuff. We'll probably scuff it up, getting it back in the truck, but it'll touch up nicely. So yeah, we'll next thing we'll install seals where they go, and then work on the rest of the rebuild. Also, forgot to mention, on both my rear and front yoke, there's some wear from the seal. You can I'm scratching the paint off right now, but it's maybe hard to tell in the camera, but you might be able to see the grooves where the seal has wore into the metal a little bit. I'm going to get sleeves for both of these. It's just basically a speedy sleeve. I don't know if you've used those before, but I'll show you how to install those when we get to it. It basically puts a nice new smooth surface on the sealing surface of the splined end of it. So there's that, and then also, oh yeah, I went ahead and tapped this hole. That's where our original breather was. It was a pressed in fit. Basically all you do is kind of pop this little vent cap off, and then you can take a screwdriver, chuck this up in your vise, take a screwdriver against this lip and pound it. Use an old screwdriver, not a brand new one. Pound it out of there. And then I tapped it to an 1/8 inch NPT pipe thread, and we'll put a 1/8 inch 45-degree elbow in there with our nipple, and we can run a vent hose up higher up into the engine compartment. I'm going to start by doing the shift rail seals. I've got a cheap seal driver set. I don't remember what it cost, but I do remember it was cheap. I've had it for several years. It served me well. Just treat it nicely and it'll be good to you. Wouldn't mind having a much nicer set, but that one works. Anyway, we're going to drive our seals in. Find the driver. This has several drivers in it that will match the outside diameter of your seal just right. Put it on there nice and square. The key to a good seal is to drive it in squarely. Give it a tap to get it started. It started just a tad bit crooked, so we'll kind of angle our hit to get it squared back up. Couple more and we should be good. Okay. You just go till it bottoms out. In this case, you'll be good to go. When we slide the shafts in, we're going to lube these seal lips. A, to help it go in, and B, to keep from tearing it as the shaft goes in. So on this bigger seal, I'm using an old bearing race. It was the only thing I could find that was close to the outside diameter. It's also important to have a good solid surface. I've done them on concrete floor before. It just seems like if you're on a kind of a wobbly or a tin workbench that bounces, it just doesn't work near as well. I'm at my welding bench now. I've got the sealing surface protected by an old shirt. But once again, no matter what size the seal, the important thing is to get it going straight and keep it going straight. Some guys would use maybe a 2x4 across there. I've done that before. I don't like it, but it can work. You don't have to have a fancy set to get it done right. Seal driver set, that is. But it does help. Anyway, just take it slow. These are some good seals that came in that kit I got. Just take it flush with the top. There, it's a good double lip seal. And there's that one. Okay, next thing we'll do is go ahead and reassemble the rear output shaft unit. First thing we're going to do is put all 45 of these smaller rollers in. We're going to hold them in place with some petroleum jelly. Just kind of pack this cavity, with the petroleum jelly. And that'll hold those rollers in place while we're working with them. They can be a little bit tricky. And the petroleum jelly isn't necessarily to lube as it is to hold them, and then it'll dissolve into the gear oil. once things get rolling in there. Just start stacking them in there. Hi, partner. Get them close, because they're towards the end. You'll wish you would have kept them close when you started.
What's that?
Huh?
What's that?
And that's to hold these rollers in, buddy. You having a good day?
Yeah.
Good. You want to go get Kale with me? Yeah. You want to go get Kale from school with me here in a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. Just about. Only about 30 more of these to go. Almost, yeah. You wave to the camera. You got chocolate Pop-Tart on your face.
Here.
Boy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Last one.
Here.
Thank you. Whoop. All right. Get them packed in there, and then make sure they're right up next to each other. All right. Get them nice and straight all the way around there. Grab our shaft. Set it like that. Shaft is all nice and clean. And carefully go. That'll push out some of your petroleum jelly once it slides down on there. Okay, and then we'll grab our speedometer gear. That can go either way. Slide it on, make sure it rolls smoothly. Then slide your speedometer drive in there and throw a little bit of petroleum jelly on that little end that goes into the bushing, just to make it slide in there nice and easy. Put your O-ring on your speedometer drive adapter. Lube it up a little bit. You can use petroleum jelly or O-ring lube.
Here, Daddy. Here, Daddy. Here, Daddy. Here, Daddy. Here. Here. Here, Daddy.
Your snap ring snapped into the groove. Grab a little piece of brass. Keep everything clean. Just like when we removed it, only tap on the outside edge of the bearing. Go until it bottoms out. Okay, I changed my plan. Instead of putting a speedy sleeve on this sealing surface of the yoke. I cleaned it up really well with emery cloth, and then I went ahead and tapped my seal down further into that boss that it slides in, so my sealing surface will end up on the nice clean portion of the yoke there. All right. So I like to use, we're going to put our gasket on, I like to use a little bit of flexible sealant on both sides of it. Just a really thin layer. Whoever had been into this the last time put a gigantic thick bead of silicone on it. So a lot of cleaning involved there for me. Okay, just match up the notch in the gasket to your drain back little valley right here. This gasket doesn't fit quite exact, so I'm going to trim it. I don't want anything as simple as a gasket to block any kind of the fluid flow in there. So it just leaves just a tad bit of lip, and that would catch some of the drain back. So I'm going to trim it out with an X-Acto knife. Alright, add a little bit, a thin layer of the flexible gasket sealant. This is Permatex 2 Forma gasket sealant, non-hardening pliable sealant. Okay, now your drain back goes on the bottom. The top is obviously where your vent hole is. So your drain, you're going to line up with the bottom. On my setup here, I can actually still kind of see from the old gasket where it goes. This is where in disassembly, if you thought you might need to, you could mark the case and the flange. Alright, we're going to tighten these down to 30 foot-pounds. I think the book says 20 to 40, so why not go 30? I've got old hardware. I'm going to get some new hardware, put some nice cap head Allen screws, stainless, in there with new lock nut. Alright, always back off your torque wrench, don't ever store it with pressure on it. We'll put some anti-seize on the splines so our yoke doesn't get frozen to our shaft. Okay, make sure it's good and clean. Very nice. Then you're going to put this cute little guy seal over your shaft. Make sure that the little splines on it match up with your splines. Your washer, your lock nut. We're going to torque that to, I believe it's 120. I'll have to look real quick. Just a minute, Bubba. Right there. Okay. 120 foot-pounds. That'll squish that seal so no oil can come between the outer splines and the male splines. Okay, now it's probably the trickiest part of the whole deal. We got to get those 15 little guys down into that hole. There's a snap ring and there's a washer. You can kind of see that's kind of cockeyed in there. You need to pull that washer up. I'll do my best to describe this. So down in that hole, there is a circlip, snap ring, whatever you want to call it, and a washer that's laying in the bottom now. You're going to take a pick and pull that washer up against the snap ring, and you'll see what I mean when you're down in there. Hold it against the snap ring, pack it full of petroleum jelly, and then put your rollers in between the washer and the bottom of that hollowed out shaft, and that's where your rollers go. So this washer is going to sit on top of your rollers. It's upside down like that, but hopefully you understand what I mean. I'll do my best to show it, but it's going to be tough to film it and do it at the same time. But hopefully you understand what I mean. You can always ask me questions on the tube. There's the, yeah, you can see where the two ends of the circlip meet together there, and then down further is the washer. And you'll pull that washer up and then pack that cavity full of or the outside of that cavity with petroleum jelly, and then get your rollers in there. Like I said, this is probably the trickiest part of the whole build. If you're lucky, your petroleum jelly will hold your washer up. Best get it on the end of your fingertip. Okay, it feels pretty good. These things do a pretty decent job of sticking to your finger as you get them slid down in there. If you got short stubby fingers, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, got them all in there and they're lined up good. You can see the washer, see the rollers, the excess petroleum jelly, and then we'll set this unit off to the side. very carefully, not to be bumped, and we'll keep moving.